YouTube, welcome back to the channel where we talk about questioning defaults, never taking anything for granted, and always applying your own critical reasoning abilities to determine how you live your life. And today we're going to talk about something I've seen happen everywhere: companies, religious institutions, academic institutions, the list just goes on, and that is when pedigree and achievements of other people begin to affect the way you determine and how you react and make decisions around these people. Now, I get it. When you see somebody walking in who's either a billionaire or a CEO of some company, an academic cited in thousands of journals, there's a certain aura and awe that comes with that person, and you're more inclined to listen to them and kind of like jot down notes and just take whatever they say as basically the gospel. And there is a reason why you do that, because they were able to achieve certain things in their lives that, are not easy to do. See, here's the thing. Recognizing achievements is a good thing because it lets you know about the ability of the person and the situations of that person's life that enabled him or her to achieve whatever they achieved. But when you start comparing that person to other people, or worse, to yourself, that becomes a problem, because it's not a pure ability-based reason why the person did well. There could be many factors that are outside of just the person's ability that have contributed towards their success. It could be that there was good timing in their life, or some people want to call it luck. It could have been availability of resources of that person's life at the right time that propelled them to achieve whatever they achieved. And so those are examples of things that are out of control, out of your control, that can make a huge determining factor onto whether or not somebody achieves something that can't be compared across people, because these are blind spots. No two people have the same lives. And for that reason, when you do this comparison, it's not purely based on abilities. It's based on abilities, perseverance, and a whole bunch of other factors. And there's no way to say that if you didn't have similar factors such as that person, that you wouldn't be able to achieve the same thing or even more. And so for that reason, it's very dangerous to start comparing people across, because now you're really comparing apples to oranges. Now, this gets really bad when we actually start to rank ourselves according to achievements and pedigree, and start putting into our own heads that, okay, so-and-so achieved this or went to that school or is a CEO or is a billionaire, and as a result, wow, they're ahead of me. That is a terrible thing to do. And this is something that other people do to you. For example, your parents might say like, oh, you're not as good as so-and-so's children because they went to so-and-so university where you only went to this university. That's fine. You can't control what other people think about you. However, when you start doing it to yourself, that's where it's something that's not acceptable, because you should be able to control what you believe in and what your sense of achievements and your sense of value is, not what other people tell you. And so for that reason, this video is all about how to take control of your own perceptions and your behavior around these people who have achieved a lot, to maximize the chance for you to succeed on your own right. Because if you just follow verbatim and take down notes of what people who have achieved done and say, that is not the path to success. That is just a path to mediocrity. You are living in somebody else's and other people's shadow. You will never be able to come out of that shadow and achieve something on your own accord, that has a lot of value and meaning to other people. Look, when somebody steps into a meeting and this person has a lot of pedigree, credits, and achievements, clearly that they have a certain level of believability in what they're saying, especially if it's something in their field that they're an expert in or have a lot of experience in, or both. And so their believability level is in fact elevated, but that doesn't mean you should not exercise your own critical thinking and your own ability to think through what they're saying and what is being discussed. The problem arises when these people come in and you're overtaken, kind of like a fan to some degree, you start like having this aura of just your bias switching to taking whatever they say for real and not applying as rigorous your own critical thinking and honest viewpoints. And you start diminishing your own capability to actually assess yourself what's really going on. And we've seen this play out over thousands of years in human history. We just have to look at what happened, for example, to Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. That was a situation where it was all based on pedigree. It was like, hey, so-and-so thought that Elizabeth Holmes is a really smart person and has invented this new thing that pricks your finger, takes a drop of blood, and figures out your health. And it just became a snowball effect of more and more people who were pedigreed believing the same thing, and it turned into a FOMO thing where everybody wanted to get in on the thing, and it turns out it was a complete fraud, and now she's serving time in jail. This dynamic I've seen play out many, many, many times over and over again. We just don't hear about it because it's not a public case that goes to public court trial. But within the microcosm of companies, of institutions, it plays out in micro versions. And it happens more often than we think. In fact, you might catch yourself doing this without even being aware of it until hopefully you've seen this video and you like kind of slap yourself in the face and like, wait a minute, is what this person's saying really legit, or am I just being kind of taken over by the awe of this person? Now, there are some signs you can look out for, and the single most important sign you should be aware of is when a person who has pedigree and is accomplished begins to use that as a logic and reason of why you should listen to them. That is the first sign of when your spider sense should get tingled, and you should double down on your due diligence and your critical thinking about what's going on. Because when somebody starts using their pedigree and achievements as the reason why you should believe in them, it's turning into a faith-based line of reason. And that is a dangerous situation because that's not necessarily backed on facts and reason, but more on trust me, bro. I mean, on the internet, you see it as a joke, right? A lot of times people ask for the source of something and the response is, trust me, bro is a source. Well, it's kind of the same thing, honestly. It's really no different. It's just that the person saying, trust me, bro, happens to have achievements and is stepping and using that as currency outside of what perhaps they should be doing. And for that reason, that is why if you ever get to the point where you achieve a lot of things and build up your own book of pedigree, that you should always stay humble and never be arrogant. You should never use your accumulation of achievements as the reason why people should be listening to you and following you. It should always be meritocratic, no matter how much you've achieved. It should always be based on what you're currently doing and saying and whether or not that makes sense, and never based on your historical accumulation of what you've done. If you be that way and you won't be arrogant and you're staying humble, then strangely enough, your following only increases because people see that and they see the value in your honesty and your authenticity in terms of the critical reasoning of why you're telling people to believe in certain things. And that's something that I practice. No matter what little things I've done so far in my life, that is not the reason why you should be listening to me. The only reason you should be listening to what I'm saying right now is not because of anything that I've done in my past, and it's not like I've done a lot, but really about the words that are coming out of my mouth and whether or not they make any sense to you when you actually sit back and do your own critical thinking about the concepts that I'm sharing with you at this point in time. And to illustrate this point, let me just give you an example. Like, we all know how like rich people behave and how like the really rich people behave. So like the rich people, they're all about kind of showing off their wealth, right? They buy super expensive cars, the way they interact with people, like the shoe shiner or the server at the restaurant, is always about like kind of telling them how good they are, right? And a certain level of expectation and to some degree arrogance. Whereas the really, really rich people are actually very down to earth, right? They have nothing to prove anymore because they've just gone to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. And so they're actually behaving more like a normal person to people regardless of stature or rank. Well, imagine if richness isn't measured just in terms of money, but in terms of a bunch of different other aspects, including the way you live your life, your ethics, your spirituality, and all the different dimensions beyond just money. Now, imagine you were rich, and if you were really rich in those aspects, how you would behave and how you would interact with different people. And I think you'll then understand what I mean. You want to act like the really, really rich people by getting there, by putting out the effort in terms of being honest, in terms of being ethical, in terms of being spiritual and all the other dimensions, that you're super rich in those aspects. And the way you'll behave, you can see when you meet people who are rich or very super rich in those other aspects. When you meet them, you'll see that they are truly leaders and at the same time down to earth, and there's this magnetism that they have, that you just need to follow who they are and what they're saying. And that's exactly what you want to be striving for, not just rich people trying to show that they're rich, but the really rich who have already ascended to a certain point where they're beyond being just rich. So I hope you listen to that message. It's a short message, but it's a very important one. Next time you meet somebody who has done so many things, appreciate and respect the work that they've done and accomplished, but understand that it wasn't just purely out of their own abilities. And there's a lot of other factors that came into play. And for that reason, you can't compare yourself to that person. And thus, just treat them like another human being. They're just another human. They're no different than you. Don't feel like fear or, awe, and that you shouldn't, question them or ask them legitimate questions. Just treat them like another human being. That's it. They're just another human being, one of the other 10 billion people on this planet. Nothing more, nothing less. And with that, I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.